In the 19th century, the Vanderbilt family firmly held the status of the richest clan in the United States. However, unlike other legendary dynasties like the Rockefellers or the Morgans, who managed to save and multiply their billions, the Vanderbilts went down in history as the main spendthrifts of the New World. How the iconic kings of America managed to reset their colossal fortune, and where on the streets of modern New York you can still find fragments of their dazzling empire. See our material. The history of this empire began with $100. That's exactly the amount 16-year-old Cornelius Vanderbilt borrowed from his mother in 1810 to buy a small, flat-bottomed barge. The young man organized a ferry crossing between Staten Island and Manhattan, showing unprecedented business acumen. For his tough character and iron will, competitors soon dubbed him Commodore, an unofficial naval title. Vanderbilt subtly felt the pulse of the era. When steamships began to displace the sailing fleet, it switched to shipping in time. And when the first trains ran across America, the Commodore did not hesitate to sell off the ships and invested every cent in the railways, creating the legendary New York Central Company. By the end of his life, his steel highways had entangled the entire country, giving the tycoon an absolute transport monopoly. When Cornelius passed away in 1877, his net worth was $100 million, an astronomical sum exceeding the entire gold reserve in the US Treasury at that time. At the same time, the founder of the dynasty was infinitely far from the image of a refined aristocrat. In the 1980s, one of his direct descendants wrote a biographical book in which he honestly admitted, "The patriarch was practically illiterate, short-tempered, and incredibly foul-mouthed. At social gatherings, he could shock the audience by noisily spitting tobacco gum and shamelessly harassing the maids." His own children also caused the Commodore only dull irritation. Of the 10 offspring, only 2 were boys, and their father considered them spineless squelches, unable to hold on to the empire. Any fool can make a fortune, but it takes a mind to keep him, the Commodore liked to grumble, referring to his eldest son, William Henry, affectionately nicknamed Billy. Contrary to his parents' gloomy predictions, Billy Vanderbilt turned out to be a brilliant strategist. After inheriting 87% of New York Central's shares, he began aggressively expanding the business. In a short 8 years at the helm, he managed to almost double the family capital, bringing it to $200 million. In terms of modern money, this is a staggering $300 billion. At that time, Billy officially became the richest man on the planet, but the clouds were already gathering. The Commodore bequeathed to transfer the lion's share of the business strictly to one heir, so as not to split up the capital. However, Billy broke this rule. Before his death in 1885, he divided the management of the railroads between 2 sons, Cornelius Vanderbilt II and William Kissam. From that moment on, the third generation began to rapidly lose interest in boring logistics schemes, giving way to unrestrained hedonism. Cornelius II still tried to support the company's business until his death in 1899, but his brother William Kissam quickly retired, preferring the desk routine of breeding thoroughbred horses and designing giant sailing yachts. In addition, a huge part of his income was absorbed by the construction of the Biltmore, the largest private estate in the United States, with an area of 146,000 acres. Faced with the downside of colossal wealth, William Kissam remarked melancholically, "Inherited wealth is a true obstacle to happiness. It deprives a person of hopes, ambitions, and certain goals worth striving for." The dynasty still seemed unshakable. In their hands was concentrated a unique collection of masterpieces of paintings by old masters, a series of luxurious summer dachas in Newport, Rhode Island, and a constellation of 10 grandiose mansions on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. But the paradigm has changed. The Vanderbilts stopped generating money. They began to spend it defiantly. They entered the history of New York as the main leaders of the Gilded Age. The real legend was the costume ball hosted by Alva Vanderbilt, wife of William Kissam, in March 1883. Wanting to wipe the nose of the old New York aristocracy, Alva called 1,200 guests. The guests, dressed in costumes of kings, fairies, and medieval knights, drank champagne in rivers, and the celebration itself cost a fantastic $250,000 at that time. It was with this ball that the Vanderbilts made their way to the top of high society. It is worth paying tribute. They spent not only on balls and diamonds, but also on large-scale charity. William Kissam also provided $1 million for the construction of affordable apartment buildings for New York City workers, and donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to Columbia University, the Young Men's Christian Association, YMCA, medical clinics, and Vanderbilt University in Tennessee. Historians have estimated that he spent the equivalent of his entire inheritance in 1885 on patronage and personal whims. While the inheritance was divided among dozens of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, twilight hung over their main source of income, the railways. In the late 1920s, the New York Central transportation empire reached its peak, followed by a protracted decline. The final blow was dealt by the Second World War. Trains have ceased to be an alternative means of transport. Trucks, mainline barges, passenger buses, and commercial aircraft have conquered the market. The symbol of American power was bursting at the seams. Between 1946 and 1958, the company had to close 4 of its 6 flagship high-speed flights between New York and Chicago. In 1970, New York Central, once the second largest railroad in the United States, officially declared bankruptcy. A year later, the remaining passenger traffic was taken over by the state-owned Amtrak Corporation. It was a crushing finale. The financial disaster instantly affected the family's lifestyle. There was nothing left to maintain the giant palaces. All 10 family mansions on Fifth Avenue were ruthlessly demolished by 1947, giving way to practical commercial high-rises. Despite the fact that the family fortune has melted away, the architectural footprint of the Kings of America still adorns New York. The gates of Central Park. The elegant wrought iron gates that today adorn the entrance to the Conservatory Garden in Central Park once blocked the entrance to the luxurious mansion of Cornelius Vanderbilt II. Fifth Avenue and Bergdorf Goodman. The iconic Bergdorf Goodman luxury department store now stands on the site of the largest private townhouse in U.S. history, owned by Cornelius and Alice Vanderbilt on 57th Street. Metropolitan Museum of Art. A pompous hand-carved fireplace and several magnificent paintings from the same destroyed mansion can now be seen on display in the American wing of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Grand Central Terminal. The most striking monument of the era. It was Cornelius Vanderbilt who financed the construction of this masterpiece of Beaux Arts architecture. There is still a monumental statue of the Commodore himself on the facade of the station. In less than 3 generations, the Vanderbilts have blown away a colossal legacy. And by the 4th generation, only a big name and archival photographs remained of the former greatness. In 1973, a large-scale Congress of Descendants was held at Vanderbilt University, attended by 120 family members. The journalists were amazed. There was not a single millionaire among the audience. In less than a century, the great creators of wealth have become its great consumers. One of the last famous representatives of the family was Gloria Vanderbilt, the great-great-granddaughter of the Commodore, who passed away in 2019. Being a style icon, an actress and a designer who made a fortune in designer blue jeans, she honestly confessed to her son, the famous TV presenter Anderson Cooper, that she did not have any hidden trust fund and she had to earn her own money from scratch. The Vanderbilt story has become a textbook example for financiers around the world. It clearly proves that there is no such fortune in the world that cannot be squandered if you forget about multiplication and succumb to the temptation of pure luxury.